How do you know your buyer's agent is presenting you the best deals? Hi, I'm Sam Powell.
And I'm Jared Krause, and we are the hosts of the Property Powers Australia podcast. And in this episode, we're discussing the importance of checking your property that is presented to you from a buyer's agent is actually within your buying criteria before moving forwards.
Yes, then we go in and touch on the 4 due diligence checks to go through after being presented a property from your buyer's agent.
Yeah, we also discuss why you should work with only the best buyer's agents that actually provide value, not based on how much time they spend working, but value. And I share a story around perceived value, which is pretty valuable and important.
Yeah, then we jump into a few key conversations around why value adds are not the key thing you should be looking for when investing in a property for capital growth.
Yeah, we also touch on what are some of the things that hold people back emotionally as a first-time buyer from investing in a great property that is actually presented by a buyer's agent, and some of the mindset tricks that people play on themselves that can keep them out of the market for a longer period of time and miss deals. Now, before we get stuck in this podcast episode, I want to let you know this is not the only way that we do help people for free. We have our How to Maximize Your Borrowing Capacity mini course. Head to propertypowers.au/resources to get that. And it helps people buy more superior assets to achieve a better ROI because they're able to maximize their borrowing capacity through this course. So check it out. Let's dive in.
See you on the inside.
Welcome to Property Pals, the podcast where we share everything around how to build a property portfolio, from researching areas, financing, structuring, buying, selling, and reinvesting to live a life of financial independence. As a disclaimer, any information shared by myself, Jared, Sam, and the Property Pals team is strictly general and should not be taken as constituting professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, and taxation advice from a qualified professional. Yes, so if I just went to a buyer's agent, Sam, and they've sent me a couple of properties to look at that they think are good investments. How do I know they're good investments? That's what I want to talk about today. Is I've learned a lot from you, so I know there's certain things. I know a few certain things that I could be checking, but I want to talk about like a big bunch of things that people that are listening can check to make sure that their property is decent, or the one they're looking at purchasing is the right one, based on how they should do their own due diligence once a buyer's agent presents property to them. So, where would you start? I know that you're a buyer's agent, and you've worked for large buyer's agent firms and taught many buyer's agent teams and stuff. So you're the man for the job. I want to grill you on this.
Well, yeah, what would I do? Great question. So let's jump in. The first thing you do is just check that what the information they're telling you is accurate. So it's your money at the end of the day, so the buck stops with you. With buyer's agents, you've got to understand that the disclaimers in their contracts are basically, this is your decision.
Yes.
We're doing the best we can to amplify your investment returns or your property purchase if you're an owner occupier, but it's like a coaching sort of fee that you're paying, and in that sense, that there's good, like everything. There's good, there's bad, there's great. I don't say the S word.
But this is so. We're going to talk about now, what are the things you can check yourselves. But this is what we do as well, right? When people come and jump onto our coaching, and we help them go through the whole process of where they're at to owning a property, and then having a strategy to build their whole portfolio out with multiple properties, depending on what type. But we actually do review the the properties, that these buyer's agents present to you, to make sure you're not, having to do it yourself. We do this for free at the moment.
Yeah, well, you do it because I just know that often there's ones that get presented that aren't the best properties there that fit your goals, right? So
yeah,
it's obviously in their best interest to do the best job possible, but there's also the commercial aspect of the business where sometimes the shit properties get put through, and a lot of people don't know whether they're good or bad or shit because they don't do it every single day. So that's
Absolutely.
that we're just that extra layer of protection, and it's giving you that confidence to go back and ask certain questions, and it's really key because this asset that you end up buying, this first asset, that's for life. Right?
That's your foundational asset.
Yeah, ideally 6 to 10 years as a minimum. So you want to get it right.
Yeah, and so I guess the first thing that you kind of mentioned there that I think we should expand before we going off like a bit of a due diligence checklist is that when they do present a property is make sure it's within your buying criteria and is going to help you set you up for your property goals as a foundational property. If it is your foundational property, if it's something like, further down the line, third or fourth property, make sure it's still going to help you set yourself up for your strategy moving forwards. So I guess that's the first thing they should check is making sure it's the property that meets their criteria.
Yep. So what you should be doing on the very first stage with your buyer's agent is sitting down and having a strategy session around what it is you're targeting to buy. Whether you're an owner occupier or an investor, you've got to select key criteria. So you're writing them down, and when these proposals are being presented to you, you need to go back and check them off, making sure that, all right, cool, you're not getting caught up in a savvy sales campaign. Does this fit into your brief that you outlined at the start? And so that's obviously step one, making sure that it does. Step two is going in and actually looking at the figures. So they'll provide you with evidence around what they think it's worth, what they think it could rent for, and going in and doing your own research into that. Like, obviously, you're not the trained eye. However, your opinion is still valid, and it's your money at the end of the day. So, empower people to go down and actually research it, because the rents are subjective on the property, but you want to put, obviously, there's the conservative approach, there's the inflated approach, and there's probably the middle path. Depending on where you're at in the property cycle, sometimes it might come across as inflated on certain parts, but that's because there's a lot of heat in the market. So in order to, like, your buyer's agent should understand that level of the heat to basically accommodate their figures. But that's always a step two, is check them, understand where the value of rise sits, because they'll put their appraisal figure forward, called $2 million. It's your money, so go back. You might only see value up to $1.9 million, and that's completely fine. It's just an opinion at the end of the day. But it's also your buyer's agent's role is to secure that property for as low as possible. So these are the conversations that I have anyway. It's like, well, we see value up to $2 million in a multi-offer scenario. It can run up to this and above that. But outside of $2 million, we can't see. You're overpaying at $2 million, and that's what I'm here to try and protect you from. So, as an example, we bought a property last night, actually, and the team, we bought this we appraised it at $2.15 million. The asking price was 1.65 plus.
Whoa.
Yeah, welcome to Sydney property market, rubbish. And the actual property recently sold, I think, 2 years ago for $1.83 million.
So it's not really recent. 2 years.
Yeah, it sold 2 years ago.
So is that recent? I thought recent was like 6 months.
Well, for a house. Not many people roll over houses in 1 to 2 years.
Okay, yeah. I'm thinking about comparables when you
compare.
No. I've got that. Disregard what I said, guys.
You get back in business, probably.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. Yeah, only owning a home for 2 years is pretty recent, for sure. Yeah.
Well, the whole point is that we grill the sales agent on their listing, which is absolute rubbish. Anyone that and this is the hardest part about my role, right? Is people see an asking price and they, you've appraised this at $2.15 million. The asking price is 1.65 plus.
Yeah.
And it's just a positioning tool, and the agent was rubbish. If they are listening to this, I don't know your name, but get out of the industry. You're the reason why people don't like real estate agents, because the property actually sold for, $1.83 million 2 years earlier. They're asking 1.65. It doesn't make any sense, because the owner's not going to take anything less, because that market has grown too, they're not taking anything less than what they paid for it, plus their
2 years ago, because they're emotionally attached to that price. Yeah.
plus the stamp duty and legal fees on a $1.83 million purchase is, you're looking at 150 grand. So my whole point is it was all BS, but the client that we're working with, they saw our figure and they were like, oh wow, I don't know how you got to that figure because they're only asking 1.65. And then when you break it down and go, well, here's all the comparables. Anyway, so we were able to save them 50 grand, which is good.
So what did you buy it for?
2.1.
Okay.
And that was in a multi-offer scenario against another buyer's agent.
It's a really good thing. Like when you think about how much money people spend for a buyer's agency, not only do people get professionals to find the right property to purchase, but also they can get the deal for cheaper as well. And that's what you're paying for, is like there's so much value in it. But I think people just struggle with the buyer's agency fee. Is like, well, I could just go away and buy this thing for myself. Yeah, you could, but are you going to be able to find the right one? And are you also going to be able to get it under the price that they're asking for, which actually saves you money, right? Like 50 grand, like saving 50 grand, I'm sure the fee's lesser than 50 grand. They've made money by using you guys. It's kind of silly not to use buyer's agent.
Yeah, and a big part is the people, they don't see the value until it gets in that pressure cooker environment where they start second guessing themselves. Oh, are we paying too much? Are we not paying too much? What's the agent saying? We really want this property. We're emotionally invested. We'll just, it's ours if we pay another 20 grand.
Yeah.
They put another 20 grand.
What's another 20 grand on 2 mil? It's like, but hang on a second, it's 20 grand.
Yeah, I'll save you a lot more than 20 grand.
Yeah.
So, and then it goes further into that. So, getting back to on topic once again,
absolutely,
is doing those checks and just looking at the comparable evidence they're putting forward, and like they're there to work with you, right? So asking those questions up front, and you're the shot caller in every transaction with the buyer's agent. That's how I see it anyway. So it's where you see value. You might only see value at, as an example, $2 million. I see value at $2 million. You're like, nah, Sam, I'm putting no more than $1.8 million. Let's have a go, and you'll learn along the way. And after a few misses, that people start to build that confidence in, obviously, myself and the team.
Knowing that you guys are where the market's at, or just a little bit under, not grossly under or grossly over, which is...
Well, historically, at the moment, I think my appraisals are within 2% of the average is 2% of the purchase price. So below what it actually ends up selling for. So we miss out on a lot more than what we buy. But from a nationwide basis, it's very difficult to do, to be that accurate all around Australia. So that just takes time. As I said, like I've looked at, I think, over 10,000 properties, and that's just...
You've got the eye for it.
Yes.
So, all right. So let's make this tangible. So somebody has got a property from their buyer's agent, and they've just checked over. Is like, yep, cool. This is within my borrowing criteria. It's it's something that I think could be good for my property portfolio with where I'm at. One thing you're mentioning is looking at the price it has sold for previously to what they're asking for now. So that's one thing, right? Now, what else? What else are some of the things that people should be checking off on their due diligence checklist?
Yes. So make sure the figure's there. That's step 2. Step 3 is just going in and going, well, what is this actual asset and where is it positioned? So
positioning, location-wise.
Yeah, location, and then so we'll start there. I go location, making sure it's not on main road, doesn't have easements, making sure that all your risk checks like your fire, your flood, your heritage, easements are a part of that check as well. Being in proximity to high clearance power lines, also making sure that you're not within that flight path, that noise. So noise is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Constantly going back to owner occupied
highways and stuff.
Yep. Highways. It's kind of common sense, but because there's like 100 points to actually check, you do miss a few. People do often miss a few, and they're also, because they're not doing it every day, they're not aware.
They don't know what they are. They're not the common.
Yeah, like I can rattle off a few things in our checks, which is making sure you're not near those high clearance power lines, because there's lending issues, and also people generally don't want to be living underneath a power line.
Yeah.
The easements to the property, well, that affects your developability of it because you can't build over easements. And then going into even like sloping blocks for properties that have the road that slopes in down to the house. Well, when it rains, that's going to build up in moisture because water's going down there. And on sloping blocks too, because like your house is built on foundations on the land, so the land does move.
Yeah.
It's constantly moving. I mean, you lay a concrete slab and then watch it sink over the last few years.
Yeah.
But doing those types of checks really help to amplify your return on your investment because it's reducing your maintenance costs. So all those things, and then going into where that actually property is positioned in that suburb, and what's around it. So doing your public housing checks, making sure you don't have that high social demographic issues, being close to schools and hospitals, and also the infrastructure that is surrounding your property, like public transport and access to all that, is key.
Yeah.
So just running through your own checklist, and I mean, in our reports anyway that we do, I'm open about it. Like, these are checks that we do. So.
Yeah, and sometimes it's this is why it's worth either having a chat to us or somebody at least before you buy it. Is like, it might be worth you taking on something that some other investors may not. Like, maybe it's something that is, not ideal, but you'll take it on because it's got so many other green flags versus like just a couple of one or two red flags. Because any investment is typically, there's a risk in anything we do in life, including investments, and it's just like working out what risks are we willing to take on. So that's weighing up those things. I wanted to come back to, you mentioned something that I think we should unpack, and that is the property being near power lines can have lending issues.
Yeah.
Yes, tell me about that.
Yeah,
tell us all about that.
It's an uncommon one, and you just as a valuer, you grow up and you're basically a risk assessor for the bank. So that's the mindset I bring into it that not many people have.
That's cool.
Which the high clearance power lines, if you're within 50 meters, it has to be flagged as a risk. It's just the rules and regulations around what we're meant to do.
Why is that a risk?
Well, if something were to happen to the power lines and you're within,
damage the property.
Damage the property, so it increases the risk. The banks want to know that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it personally, but obviously the rules are there for us to tick boxes for a reason.
Yeah.
Also the desirability generally within that, it's only 50 meters, so it's not like you can be near a power line, you can see it, but if you're further than 50 meters away from your boundary, then it doesn't affect it at all.
Sam's looking out the window here for power lines.
Well, it was drilled into us. It was like always look up, look around, and I've also negotiated on properties, got down to it, and then the power lines are there, right? And you're like, I've got to pull out because it's not in the client's best interest. And it should have been flagged earlier. Don't get me wrong, that was my mistake. But the whole reason around that, I'm digressing, is that the power lines in different locations, they do look differently. So
So when you say it's got lending issues, obviously for the bank it's a bit more of a risk. Does that mean it could be that because it's within that 50 meters to the dwelling, those power lines, that it could be possible, and I'm making this up completely, so I could be wrong. Is it maybe possible that finance doesn't get approved because of this?
Yep.
Or okay.
So you don't have to have. They only do an 80% loan to value ratio. So what that means is that if you're going in and you only have a 10% deposit, you don't have the ability to transact on that property.
Yeah.
So you're out, and
because the risk is too high for the banks. If you've got a low LVR, there's not enough equity in the property to fix some sort of damage if it was to happen with a power line.
Yeah, but if you can't buy the property anyway, if you've only got 100 grand cash, as an example, you can't transact on it. But what I look further into it, why I don't want to be there, is because of those restrictions that are there from the bank. It hinders your resaleability in the future. So it's just like,
and hinders you pulling out equity, I guess, probably.
Well, you still pull out 80% loan to value ratio anyway.
That's true. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's like there's a key risk that not many people look at. Also, for renovation risks, if properties aren't suitable for rent as is, then the valuer can go in there and flag that there's a lot of damages that's there, and the bank then know, all right, well, we've got to only lend up to a certain percentage on this value, which it tends to always be that 80%. They want to see at least a 20% buffer, because you can't generate income out of it, and repairs need to be taken into account. So it's a slightly higher risk from their point of view. A key way around that is actually getting quotes, formal quotes done up, and you put that forward with your finance application. So the valuer is going, all right, well, I'll do this on an as-if complete basis. So you can get the lending, which is, here's all the quotes. The property is being purchased for $1 million. It needs $100,000 worth of work. So here's the quotes to justify that as if complete. Once these works are done, what's this probably going to be worth? And it's the valuer to go in and go, contract price is $1 million, quotes to fixers of $100,000. You'd at least assume that it's a $1.1 million purchase. Often that's a detracting factor for buyers. So they actually, sometimes you get valuations that might come in at 1.15, 1.2, if sales can support it. But valuers are risk averse, so they'll always take the lower end because it's just that conservative approach that for them. Why take the higher risk of giving these people an extra $100,000 equity when they don't have to?
Yeah. Wow, so much in that. We could just call this episode "Why You Should or Should Not Buy New Power Loans."
There's a multitude of factors, and that's the whole. A big reason why we're doing what we're doing is that you go in, you build this trust in this business that is giving you good advice.
And finding property for you.
Yeah, but also there is the rise of the buyer's agent in Australia, and it's concerning the lack of experience that they have, and that's not
absolutely.
I don't. So, obviously, I'm not perfect either.
what I get scared. I mean, but you've been doing it before the rise of the buyer's agents came up, and if you looked at tens of thousands of deals. But what worries me is like when I see something on YouTube, or an ad on like become a buyer's agent, become your own buyer's agent, do this course for like I don't know how much it is, 10, 15,
$9 grand,
and then everybody can become a buyer's agent and make they can make decent money, right? Like 10 to 15 grand a pop, and they could just do 6 of them a year and make an income. Where you don't want somebody who's buying 6 properties a year and has no experience to buy you or find a property for you, because you're like, damn, like you're a baby, you're green, and that's why you need to have. I mean, like, chat to us. We can recommend buyers agents for you guys, and then we can also verify their work. Like, it's a double whammy. It's like just de-risking your investment and coming back on track. What else is on the due diligence checklist here?
Well, just running through it, asking those.
So that we've gone through checking your buying criteria. So it's going to set you up for your goals with your property strategy and your portfolio. And then you've got location.
Yep, and then asset type.
Okay.
Yeah, so we haven't touched on that one. So it's making your strategy, and then also checking the numbers, making sure the numbers actually stack up. Because some people might say it's going to rent for $1,000 a week, and it might actually be renting for $800 a week. That's a big difference.
Yeah,
so
you want a huge difference, right?
And you won't know until you actually settle on the property and put a tenant in there.
Because you can get a rental appraisal, but they're not always accurate, right?
Different agents inflate them. But
so that's another good thing to mention, is that an agent that is selling the property may do a rental appraisal on the property to make the property look more attractive. Yeah,
classic one is like, it's appraised at this $1,200 a week, or like $900 to $1,400 a week. And then I'm like,
discrepancy there.
Where did you get those figures from? They're like, we just did the price finder rental assessment. And I'm like, so it's a computer generated rental assessment that you're putting to people. Reality was, it was probably sitting more around $900 a week. But if you're going in your mind and say, this is going to rent for
$1,400,
$1,200 or whatever,
it's best to be conservative as an investor as well, isn't it?
But it's just like, I can't hit on it enough. It's your money. Do the work, and yes, you're paying people to do that work for you, but they're doing all the heavy lifting. They're running around. It's for you to sit back and go, yeah, actually, that's a good property, and the numbers stack up, and then the location is good, and then the final aspect is the asset, the improvements. So, do the improvements light you up in what your strategy was? Like, are you looking for a pool or not? Are you looking for a low set or a 2-story? Do you the floor plan is really key as well. Looking at that from the residential point of view, from a commercial, it's looking at the due diligence on the business as well. There's so many different aspects to it. I don't want to sort of there's commercial and there's resi.
Yeah, we'll sticking with resi for now.
Yeah, we'll get into commercial later in the podcast because there's a lot of really key information around that too. But
so much good stuff we're going to chat about in commercial.
Generally, people start on the residential side because it's familiar. So enjoy this journey with us. Before we continue today's pod, I want to ask you a few questions. What is your property investment goal? What type of properties do you want to own? How many? What size valuation property portfolio do you want to own? And how much net income do you want to be earning? Essentially, what's your magic number in passive income that you want to be earning? And do you know how to get there? And if you do you know how to get there in the least time possible with the least amount of risk?
Sam and I have been helping people invest in property and build property portfolios for years. People who are now replacing their income through property, and we want to help you do the same. Right now, for a limited time, we are offering free property coaching to our listeners. We won't be able to do this forever, of course, so head to propertypowers.au/coaching. That's propertypowers.au/coaching to see how we can help you achieve your investment property goals. Link will be in the description too.
Yeah, they're sort of your key checks. So the floor plan, going back to that one, that's really key. So a lot of people don't really understand the importance of a good floor plan.
You light me up here. Love a good floor plan.
Well,
I just like looking through the listings and be like, oh, like what can we do to add value here? It's just really cool.
Yeah, I like that too. But also, I'm looking at it from owner occupiers, right? Like, and this is why a good buyer's agent. You've heard a lot of feedback from buyers and what they like about properties, and you see there and go, well, some people like the master bedroom at the front, some people like it at the back. It's just sort of weighing that up. Like if you find a house that doesn't have an ensuite but it's got 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, that's a massive detraction. Like not many people want to live like a master bedroom without an ensuite. So there's simple things like that. But then
so entitled.
A good property that we're actually negotiating on at the moment. Hopefully we get it. The laundry was next to the main bedroom, and I was just like, it was a 3-bed, 1 bath, and I was like, ooh, this is a nice, easy smash that wall through, convert it into an ensuite. Yeah. Things like that start sort of like lighting you up, asking the right questions. But I mean, location does 8% of the heavy lifting, so that's a.
You say 80%?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good thing to know.
Yeah.
So location is 80%, and the rest equals up to 20%.
So
good maths, Jared.
Well done. So the biggest part for the property, and that's like obviously what I do as well, is just making sure that if you are buying for that property, whether it is owner occupier or investment, you want to make sure that you're in a good location that is showing good growth prospects. And each suburb, it could be different. The neighbouring suburb could be different to the one you're buying into. So having that, all the access to the data and overlooking it is just it's an invaluable resource because it's going to amplify your returns over the long term if you get it in that sweet spot.
Here's a good question for you. With all the businesses and the companies you work for in coaching buyer's agents and being a buyer's agent yourself, is there an average amount of properties that an investor will be presented that has engaged with a buyer's agent that they look at before they purchase? Like, is there like 2 to 3, 2 to 5, 1? Depends. It's obviously going to depend on how good the buyer's agency is and how good they are at finding deals. But yeah, what does it look like?
Hardest thing for a buyer's agent is actually pairing up what the client's perception of what they want to what's actually out there, what's available.
Okay. So you say perception, what they want.
Yeah, because people have in this mind, like when you were buying your first investment property, what did you have in mind?
Get rich as fuck. No, just kidding. I had that I wanted to get like a bit of land with a house on it that could have good capital growth. And
What'd the house look like?
I don't care.
Cool.
Yeah.
You didn't care if it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom?
No.
Did you? You wanted minimum land size or anything?
I was hoping like more than 400 meters squared.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just didn't. I was investing for numbers. I wasn't investing like, oh, this makes me feel really good. Maybe one day if shit hits the fan, I can move into this property. I don't care about that.
Cool. So everyone's got an opinion, right? So
yeah, I'm a bit of an anomaly in that because I'm a weirdo.
No. That you're the perfect client where you trust the process and it's just putting the right properties in front of you to say yes. So if you
so that's a good thing. What do most people have? I mean, a lot of people it's their first property and they're like, oh, maybe they haven't invested much money before and they're a bit fearful and they're a bit like, oh, skeptical. What are some of their things that they do want that we should talk about for people to maybe like not hold on to or be so attached to?
Yes, good point. So
what are those common ones?
Common ones are people want everything, right? Like there's certain buyers like, I want a development site that also I can put a granny flat on that I can get good cash flow and good capital growth.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, you're looking for this unicorn, and then they're like, and I want renovation potential. And just like something like that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
right? Like and if it does, great. But what I'm saying, the location does 80% of the heavy lifting. There's no point in getting a development site that you're not going to develop in the future anyway, just so you can go around and talk to people, oh, I can develop it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, what's the best asset for capital growth? Let's find that, and then try and stack on the amplification of like
the bonuses.
The bonuses. So it's like, well, this is a sound investment that actually you can just buy and hold and do nothing with, and that's it's simple, easy investing. A lot of people they think that they can go and do the renovations and do all that, be the developer, but when you start breaking down the fees involved, they start to get a bit scared and going, oh, well, actually, maybe that's not me. But I've just read all these books and I'm all motivated. And it's good to try and amplify your, reduce your risk by having those options like granny flat development. But the thing that I find is that often on these sites that people are searching for from the investment side of things is the granny flat capabilities. Yes, it's there, but it actually detracts from the value of the main dwelling if you're going to put the granny flat there.
Yes.
So it's not...
That's such a good point.
Yeah, and I spend a lot of time just talking to people about this and going, well, if we can find a corner site that you can put the granny flat on, fantastic. But that's not... Like, you shouldn't be just investing so you can get a granny flat, because I go further into it and say, well, instead of spending $200,000 on a granny flat, let's use that as a deposit for another house. And then you have two assets going in similar day. You've got the option for it. And then that's same as the developability. People go down this path. There's just so much BS out there where it's like, you can be a developer. Like, I've bought sites that you can put 1 into 3 lot developments, 1 into 2 lot developments on that day, but it's in a location that doesn't support it. People aren't looking for a 300 square meter block of land.
I have seen examples of this where people have bought a property actually in Tugun, and this is like 4 years ago, on the Gold Coast, and I'd seen that they bought this thing and they were turning it into a three townhouse thing. And they had this plan and rented images, and they couldn't sell any of them because nobody wanted those in that area. It just wasn't where the market was at. And this is the funny thing, is like, people may listen to a podcast or a YouTube video or find a strategy somewhere and they just go away and elaborate in their mind and they fantasize about it, and then realize that in the real world, does that actually exist? And is the market there? Is the money there to want it? Like, versus the opposite way around is, if you find the demand and then you can give the supply, you're going to win in every situation, in property and business and all that sort of stuff, versus going, I'm going to build something that's so good that people will come to it. Like, if you build it, they won't come.
Yeah, and then
it's opposite.
The more you learn about it, like, obviously we're big proponents of just trying to have more time. So that's obviously our niche. I'm not big on the developing side because, you can manufacture hundreds of thousands of dollars into the deal, but that comes with a lot of time and effort and money too. You're going to see these consultants do all this work, and it can get to a stage too where you go and spend your $50,000 on professional fees to come to realization that it's actually not worth doing it.
Exactly. I've got a really small example, and this was based on this is from the first property that I bought with the buyer's agent, and they're like, "Yep, you can buy this property," and there's already a 4-2, and there was room for a shed, and they had already seen that other properties in the area that had a shed that was similar to this one were renting out for more. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, they're like, yeah, you could just do a value add. And I think that I may have wanted a value add or something like that. I can't remember, but maybe they're just selling it as a value add in there. And I was like, yeah, cool. Well, I'll look into that after I purchase it. Let's just buy it. Looked into it after I purchased it, not really attached to wanting to put in a shed, because it would increase rent like $20 to $30 a week, maybe $40 a week. And then I looked at the price of the shed and I was like, how many years is it going to take me to get my ROI back from building this shed? Say the shed cost me 10 grand or whatever it is. Like, if you do the maths, it's like, well, I still even own the property at that point in time, and it may actually cost me maybe a cost because I've been sold into like, oh, there's a value add, and that's what we should do to just get a better ROI from our investment, when you got to do the maths on these guys.
Yeah, you get depreciation out of it too.
Yeah,
it's just,
it wasn't worth it though, right? It's just,
yeah, that's to each their own. And then also, if you put a shed in there when you go to sell it, some people might want to have a pool there instead. Like, you can get a little bit lost in it all in trying to outperform the market. But I'm just more of a keep it simple, like the KISS strategy.
I like the KISS strategy.
And then it's focusing on that location growth is massive, and then just really the owner occupier appeal for residential is so key. Disco.
We've got a light show going on back here.
Batteries dying.
Yeah. So, all right. So location being 80%, absolutely, and then you're going to look at the asset.
Yeah. So flex your questions on
the location.
Why? Why is this location? What's pointing you there? Who are you talking to? What's the research around that? Because I can tell you, you can come to me as a buyer's agent, and I could have just a preconceived idea, like say Gold Coast. I like Chevron Island. Why? Built out, fantastic. But you got to have a data source to give you that confidence. What's the supply levels there in the future coming forward? What's the demand?
Yep.
What's the median house price? What's the unit price? What's the yield? What's the vacancy rates?
So these are the things that you should be checking through the DD as well. It's like, what's the supply? What's the demand? Vacancy rates, median house price. You should be looking at those when you're looking at the location. Also, typically it sounds like that's going to be done when you engage a buyer's agent. They're going to have a location or one or two locations already, and they're just going to be presenting deals from those locations. So I guess bulk of that DD is going to be done in one sort of sitting based on one location versus, if you've got to buy, I don't know, this is a question for you. If you've got a buyer's agent that comes to you and presents 5 deals from 5 different locations, are you worried? Because you're like, oh, this person's like,
no,
they're green. Oh,
well, I don't know, to each their own, right? I usually present one at a time because then people can get caught up in if you've got two assets, too many deals. And going back to your initial question of like how many properties do you present before people say yes, but very rarely do people say yes on the first one, even if like I see great purchases, right? And I put it in front of people and I'm like, this is a ripper. Jump on. But they're hesitant because like, oh, look, it makes sense, but like it's the first one you presented. We don't want to jump on the first one. And then you're like, okay, cool. So that's the education process that we have to go through. And like, I'm not pushy in any way. I'm like, look, it's not for you. That's fine. This is an opportunity. It's great. Ticks all your boxes.
Just pass it to Jared.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, if it's not for you, don't worry about it. You're just on your journey. And some people might be, it's the buyer profiles, right? There's buyers that are just like, I want it now. And I've been looking at all these properties and, I want you to basically hold my hand and say this is a good buy. And most of the time, the ones they're giving me are rubbish. So I'm glad they came and asked for help.
Yeah.
But they're the ones that they get stuck in, like, you present a really good property and they go, oh, actually, no, I'm not sure on that one. And you're like, why? Like, oh, it's not the first. It's the first or the second one. I want to see more deals. I want to see 5 deals and I want to compare them all. I'm like, if I present 5 deals to you, that's going to take a lot of our research time to actually do that. And you're going to pick one. And what if by the time you actually pick that one, because you went and ummed and ahed over the last 5, now that's sold. Now everyone's missed out on it. So that's how we sort of run is one at a time. If a good one comes up that fits their brief, then obviously we'll put that forward to them as a maximum of 2. But generally, they'll say no the first one. They'll miss out on, or they'll say yes, but they'll miss out on it because they're just like, they're not sure of the process. They don't trust our appraisal figures, and then they learn the market, right? And it's like, okay, cool. The market is heated to a certain extent, but yeah, usually like say 3 to 4 is just
why this podcast is so important. It's for people to listen in and go, all right, cool. If a buyer's agent is going to present a deal, you need to know how to do your DD on that deal, so you can not miss out on it if it's the right one. But
you can say like the big part of what we do is just like if it makes sense and it lights you up, it ticks all your boxes, then go forward with it, because you need to give that. You don't know what the value of the property is going to land at until you begin in negotiations.
Yes,
and
correct.
That's what. So the way that we handle it is, here's a great asset.
Here's the possible price we can get.
Here's all the numbers. Here's comparables. Like, we're gonna, once we get that tick approval from you, we go further into, getting more details on the property itself. But there's no point in doing
that extra work if you're going to be a no.
Yeah, like doing 6 hours of due diligence research. If you're just going to straight up know it, it's not an efficient process for the business. So usually we spend 1 to 2 hours up front, find that. But we've also spent the whole entire...
Yeah, it's not just 1 to 2 hours. It's about your whole IP, intellectual property, on your tens of thousands of deals that you've already looked at. It's not just the 1 to 2 hours per deal.
Yeah, but it's also like we've picked it's 1 to 2 hours on the asset itself. So we spend all the hundreds of thousands of hours getting to the actual location and the brief.
Can I share it? Can I share the value story with people? So there was a guy.
It's your podcast, mate.
I think we should explain value here, because in value, time doesn't equal value. But for most people that have learnt from societal conditioning that, per hour rates and stuff like that, it's like, and it's important to understand that when you're hiring somebody, you're not paying them typically per hour. You are paying them per what they know and how much value they have. So there was a guy that was in a restaurant and he was doing portraits, and this is like back in the 1400s or something like that. It was a long, long time ago. And there was a woman that walked in the restaurant, was like, "Oh, can you paint my portrait?" And this story is like, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a very good reflection of value. And the guy was like, "Yeah, I'll paint your portrait," and did it on a napkin, right? And the napkin, and he's just painted this wasn't really a painting, it was like a drawing of a portrait of the woman. And she's like, "Oh wow, this is so lifelike. It's so amazing. Like, it's so good." And it took him, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And she said, "Oh, how much? How much?" And he's like, "Oh, that's €300. Back then it's like $30,000 our time or something like that, right?" And she's like, "Whoa, hang on, this only took you 20 minutes. And the guy's name was Picasso. And he said, "This didn't take me 20 minutes. This took me decades and decades and decades and decades and decades of learning how to perfect an art and to do it in a short period of time." So that's the perception of value that people don't understand when they come to a buyer's agent. And I wanted to share that because people are like, "Well, it only took you 1 to 2 hours to find this deal." No. It's totally different. And I'm just backing up buyer's agents here because I think people should use buyer's agents, but it's the same with everything in life.
Yeah, and that's a big. I had the shift too because obviously I was trying to do my own plumbing before, and then I've had to end up getting a plumber out there to fix up all my stuff ups.
Yeah.
But it's different when it's a few $100 of stuff ups. But like when you're talking, hundreds of thousands, often millions of dollars, one small mistake can cost you a lot more than the fees that are being charged. And sometimes they buyer's agents fees, just full disclaimer, they can range from anywhere between $4,000 to $100,000. in the Australian property market at the moment, from what I've seen. And some people might fall off their chair when they hear 100 grand, but when you're buying a $10 million asset,
it's cheap.
It's cheap to
when they could get you the deal for 200 grand less or 300 grand less. You're basically saving 200 grand or 100 grand by using a buyer's agent.
Yeah, but also in that time frame too, it's like, well, you're dealing with people that they might be making large sums of money, and it's like, well, if you don't go down that path, then you'll end up either not buying property because you don't have enough time, or you'll just go and throw money at something to get it done because you've got other things that you want to do. And and then some people are like, whatever, it's 100 grand. I'll pay what they're asking.
Absolutely.
For me, I sit there and go, let's help you out. And my fees obviously definitely not 100 grand in our team, but it's something that when you get more established in the market, you go into that prestige side of things, and you have to put your fees accordingly because the value you add.
The value is insane.
But due diligence checks. So going back to that on your BA, on your buyer's agent, do all those things. But location is really key. But having a strategy going into it and sticking to it is important, and being open-minded to the people that, like, you're paying these people a fee, right? Like, you should trust them, what they're saying, and they have your best interest at heart. They're good people. They've gone into the industry to help you. And to get to that path of actually talking to these people, well, one, come and see us because we can put you in contact with the best ones that are out there in the Australian property market. And the reason why is, like, there's nationwide investment buyers agencies that are great, but there's also the local buyers agents that are amazing. They're the ones that are, like, on the ground in that area. Really great for owner occupiers because they know that market like the back of their hands. Where most people, we weren't aware of all the data that's available now. And
in the last sort of 6 to 7 years, data has come a long way. For locations.
So you shouldn't have that issues. Obviously, talk to the best people, but it's still good to, like, from our point of view, I always like to overlook it, just to have that independent, fresh set of eyes over it to give you those questions to go back with. But if you have any questions, obviously reach out, info hello@propertypowells.au, and by all means, like, put you in the right people. But going back to the check side of things, then they're kind of main ones. So strategy, location, asset selection, and checking the figures that are being presented to you are in line with where the market's telling you. So you're not overpaying or not overestimating what things are going to rent for or sell for.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for listening. We'll speak to you on the next one.
Ciao for now.